My name is Elizabeth. I'm sitting in my office, the silence heavy around me. The air conditioning hums softly, a sterile white noise that almost sounds like peace. But it's a fragile peace, shattered just moments ago when my mother walked in, uninvited. She stood in the doorway, her perfume a cloying mix of vanilla and guilt. Her hair was immaculate, and she wore pearls, exuding an air of confidence that filled the room before she even spoke. "Elizabeth," she said, arms wide as if this was a reunion, not an intrusion. I stood up slowly, my voice steady but my heartbeat pounding. "Mom." She glanced around the office, taking in the glass walls, the framed patents, and the hum of success. "So, this is where all the genius happens," she remarked. "You didn't even tell us." Imagine my surprise reading about my own daughter in Forbes. I forced a smile. "You could have called." "Oh, I did," she said lightly. "You changed your number." "I figured you were just busy, so I thought I'd visit. Family should celebrate together, right?" Her tone was sweet, but her eyes were scanning my desk, searching for something. I motioned to the chair. "Sit." She opened her purse with deliberate care and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. "Actually, I came because I've been thinking a lot about everything I've done for you. All the sacrifices, the years of raising you girls. It hasn't been easy." A cold chill ran down my spine. "What are you talking about?" She unfolded the paper and slid it across my desk. "This," she said, smiling. I glanced down. Typed lines, itemized. Private school tuition, meals, emotional labor, and at the bottom, a neat total, $1 million. It wasn't a joke. I looked up. "You're asking me to pay you $1 million for being my mother?" Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes hardened. "For everything I gave up, for all the things you could never repay." My breath caught. "Family doesn't work like that." "Family," she snapped, her voice suddenly sharp. "Family doesn't abandon the woman who gave them everything." I swallowed hard. "You chose to have me, Mom. Children don't owe their parents for being born." For the first time, she faltered. Then she leaned closer. "Can't or won't?" I could have had a life, a career, a husband who stayed. But instead, I gave it all to you. Her words echoed in my mind, but something inside me remained still. I'd lived my life trying not to upset her, but that ended here. "I'll help with your expenses," I said quietly, "but not this." Her face froze. "Then you're no longer my daughter." She stood, smoothed her jacket, and headed for the door. At the frame, she turned back. "Your father would be ashamed of what you've become." And when she left, the silence that followed was heavy, alive, and mercifully final. I sat back in my chair and stared at that piece of paper on my desk, the invoice for motherhood. As I sit here, I'm reminded of the long journey that led me to this moment. I grew up in a seemingly normal family. Our house was a 2-story home with trimmed hedges, and neighbors always waved and said what a nice family we were. But inside, it was a different story. My mother, Victoria, was like a director, and my younger sister, Lily, was her star actress. Every conversation revolved around Lily. Every photo on the mantel had her in the center. If I was in the frame at all, it was by chance. Lily was the life of the party. She was the dancer, the apple of my parents' eyes. Mom called her her miracle. When Lily performed, Dad would stand up and record it with enthusiasm. But when I brought home straight A's, Dad didn't even look up from his newspaper. Mom would say, "We don't brag in this house, Elizabeth." Yet, somehow, bragging about Lily was perfectly fine. When Lily turned 16, she got a brand new car with a red bow. I got her old bus pass and a reminder to be grateful. Dinner every night was the same routine. Dad would talk about work, Mom would praise Lily, and I would clear the plates while pretending not to care. The smell of lemon detergent became the scent of my invisibility. I told myself I was strong, that being invisible meant I was independent. But deep down, I knew it was a lie. When I got into college, I rehearsed my request for help with tuition for days. I waited until Dad was relaxed, the newspaper folded, and the TV humming low. "I'll need help with room and board," I said carefully. Mom didn't look up from her laundry basket. Dad just muttered, "You've got scholarships, right? You're 18 now, you'll manage." Those words cut deeper than they sounded. I was on my own financially. That night, I filled out loan forms under a dim lamp while Lily slept peacefully across the hall. I wasn't angry, I just felt hollow, like a door had closed quietly, and no one noticed I was still standing outside. College was a blur of labs, ramen, and side jobs. I sent short texts home at first, still hoping someone would ask if I was okay. But they never did. The family group chat was filled with photos of Lily's new dresses, her vacations, and her engagement to a guy with perfect manners. I learned to mute the notifications. Then, I met Dr. Amelia Reed. She took me on as her research assistant, and for the first time, I felt seen. She called me meticulous and said, "You don't just follow instructions, you think." No one had ever said that to me before. She introduced me to the quiet rhythm of the lab, the hum of centrifuges, the clean scent of ethanol, and the small thrill when an experiment worked. It was the first place where I didn't have to shrink myself. By the time I graduated, I'd built a wall of calm around me. I'd stopped waiting for approval and stopped asking for help. I thought I was free from them until one photo shattered that illusion. It was Lily again, holding the keys to a beautiful condo with a lake view. The caption read, "Happy 21st, baby girl." And in the background, there was a red bow, the same shade as the one on her car years ago. That photo burned through me more quietly than anger ever could. I didn't throw my phone, cry, or call. I just stared at that red ribbon until the screen dimmed. It was the same color as every time they'd celebrated Lily, like the color itself had been reserved for her victories. After that, home stopped being a place and became a concept I'd outgrown. My scholarship covered rent in a campus basement apartment with thin walls, humming pipes, and the faint smell of instant noodles. I spent nights in the lab chasing numbers instead of sleep. Dr. Reed would check in on me, asking if I ever took a break. I'd shrug. "Breaks are expensive." She'd smile sadly, as if she knew that sentence meant more than I said. The next semester, she called me into her office. The room was filled with warm light, books stacked in gentle chaos, and a half-finished cup of coffee beside her laptop. "Elizabeth," she said, "you're different lately. Not in a bad way, just focused. Whatever you're chasing, I hope it's for you, not against someone else." I wanted to say it was both, but I just nodded. When Stanford offered me a fully funded PhD position, I didn't tell my parents or Lily. I packed my car, a dented old sedan full of notebooks and wilted plants, and drove until the highway signs said California. Somewhere between mile markers, I stopped feeling like a daughter. I was something else now. Stanford was a different world. People there measured worth in discovery, not attention. I belonged to the midnight shift of the lab, surrounded by pipettes, playlists, and fluorescent lights. Every now and then, my phone would light up with family chat photos from holidays I wasn't invited to. Lily's wedding ring, Mom's captions about her wonderful daughters. I'd scroll through them with the detached curiosity of a stranger. Then one day, a text came just to me. "Heard you finished your PhD. Congratulations. Maybe now you can help your sister with her business idea." There was no question mark after the congratulations, just expectation. I deleted the message and blocked the number. Years passed. My work turned into a startup, a small biotech company built from long nights and stubborn faith. Ryan, a sharp, kind, and grounded partner, joined me, and we built something that mattered. When investors called, they called me Dr. Elizabeth. The same name that once meant nothing in my family now opened doors in places they'd never stepped foot in. Success came quietly at first, then all at once. Funding rounds, headlines, an acquisition offer. And then, my mother showed up with that invoice. After she left, I walked into the lab early before sunrise, before anyone else could see the wreckage on my face. The machines hummed softly, steady and loyal. I started a new synthesis, wrote notes with the same precision I'd always had, and told myself this was how you heal, with order, with proof, with new identities. Dr. Reed found me an hour later, holding a cup of coffee. She looked at me, then at the empty space behind my eyes. She came, didn't she? I didn't ask how she knew. She always knew. She wants money, I said. $1 million. Dr. Reed didn't flinch. And what do you want? I thought for a long moment. Peace, I said, but I don't think it's refundable. That night, I sat on the bathroom floor of my office, still wearing the champagne-colored dress from the party. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely breathe. The mirror across from me reflected someone calm, detached, someone I didn't recognize. I remembered every Sunday dinner where Mom said, "We do everything for you girls." Every silent ride home where I tried to believe her. Every time I excused her cruelty as stress. And suddenly, I could see it for what it was, not sacrifice, but control. She gave so she could own. I texted Ryan, "Don't come by tonight. I need to think." 2 days later, I met with my lawyer. I told him to create a trust for my mother, enough to cover her basic needs, nothing more. Strict conditions, I said, she can't touch the principal. No withdrawals beyond the monthly stipend. He raised an eyebrow. You're protecting her from herself. I shook my head. I'm protecting me from her. The calls started the next week. At first, they were angry. You'll regret this, Elizabeth. You can't erase me. Then they turned pleading. I forgive you, sweetheart. Just send the money so we can be family again. By the third round, they became threats. Maybe the media should know how ungrateful you are. I stopped answering. Ryan watched me one night, sitting on the couch, my phone lighting up over and over. You don't have to read them, he said. I'm not, I told him. I just need to see how far she'll go. Eventually, the messages slowed. The noise faded into static. And one morning, there were no more missed calls, no new emails, just quiet. That quiet felt earned. A month later, Dr. Reed called me into her office again. You've been working like someone's chasing you, she said softly. Is it over? I nodded. Almost. She handed me an envelope. Then take this weekend off. Go somewhere that isn't built from adrenaline. Inside was a printed ticket to a coastal retreat, a place where the lab noise would be replaced by waves. That night, I stood by my office window, the city lights reflecting off the glass like distant stars. I thought of the woman who'd raised me, how she'd mistaken fear for love and guilt for loyalty. And I thought of myself finally untethered, finally breathing in a life that wasn't borrowed. The acquisition ceremony came 3 months later. Our company had been valued at $80 million. Investors, journalists, champagne, the whole illusion of triumph. I smiled for photos, shook hands, and said all the right words. No one saw the small scar beneath the perfection, the space where I'd cut off the last thread of her control. After the speeches, I stepped outside for air. The night was crisp, the Pacific wind sharp enough to feel like cleansing. Ryan joined me, handing me a glass of water instead of champagne. You okay? He asked. I am, I said, and I meant it. But peace doesn't stay still for long. 8 years passed. The company thrived. We built, we healed, we lived. And then one autumn morning, driving through Seattle for a conference, I saw her again. She was sitting on a curb outside a coffee shop, a paper cup in her hand. Her gray hair was tangled, her eyes dim, but she was unmistakable. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. The world went quiet in that dangerous way it used to. I parked, bought 2 coffees, and sat beside her. She didn't recognize me at first, then she whispered Elizabeth like a question she was afraid to finish. We talked for an hour, half-truths, fragments, things too fragile to name. She said she was sick. Pride had taken what the world hadn't. When I left, I arranged help through the trust, not as a daughter repaying debt, but as a human refusing cruelty. I didn't forgive her that day, but I stopped letting her story define mine. And when I drove away, the city looked softer, like it was finally letting me go. I didn't tell anyone about that meeting for a long time, not Ryan, not Dr. Reed. It didn't feel like a secret. It felt like closure. The following week, I got a call from the social worker overseeing her case. They said she'd accepted the help, but refused to list me as an emergency contact. I almost laughed. Even at the end, she wanted the last word. I didn't fight it. Instead, I focused on the small mercies. She was safe, she had food, she wasn't on the street. The rest was no longer my job to fix. Some nights, I'd sit on my balcony looking over the city, thinking about how peace isn't loud. It doesn't roar like revenge or crash like heartbreak. It hums steady, quiet like the machines in the lab that once held my world together. Dr. Reed retired that winter. At her farewell dinner, she took my hands and said, "You've built everything you once wished someone would build for you. Don't forget to rest inside it." I promised I would try. Ryan and I grew our company slowly, carefully. We created scholarships for girls in science, kids who reminded me of myself before the silence hardened. Each time I saw one of them light up over a breakthrough, something in me softened, too. One morning, a letter arrived. No return address, just my name in a shaky hand. Inside, one line on plain paper, "Thank you for the coffee." No apology, no signature. And yet, it was enough. That evening, I drove to the lake near our old neighborhood. The water was still, the kind of stillness that holds its breath before dawn. I whispered a goodbye no one heard and let it sink into the ripples. Freedom didn't look like victory, it looked like calm. For the first time, I understood that love doesn't always heal you. Sometimes, it teaches you who you must become without it. People think closure is a conversation, some neat ending where everyone hugs and cries. It's not. It's the moment you stop waiting for the apology that will never come and you live anyway. I don't hate my mother. I don't love her either. I just wish her peace, somewhere far from mine. If you've ever had to build yourself from the silence your family left behind, know this. You don't owe anyone for surviving. You don't owe them your forgiveness to stay free. Share your story in the comments. Someone out there needs to hear it. And if this story found you, stay. There's more to tell.